This week in track and field gave us some good performances. Gout Gout, we can't get him out of the conversation. He's growing up right before our eyes, and we have to talk about him, even though you often want to leave young athletes, a 17-year-old, to develop, but he's giving us some jaw-dropping performances there. Spectacular world records in the field. Mykolas Alekna, Valarie Allman also going really far. Lots of record breaking performances and really far throwing there in Oklahoma. Not to be surprised there. But number of interesting stuff. We'll talk a little bit about Letsile Tebogo. We'll talk about some of the performances there at the Gaborone meet there in Botswana. And anything else you want to talk about. And I'll probably return, if I'm being honest with you, to the Grand Slam track. There's been a few different things happening since we last did a live reflecting on the first slam in Kingston. And now it seems to be that everyone is talking about it. And even a somewhat of a scathing report or an article there from the former meet director for the Diamond League, coming up with kind of shocking claims. A lot of people, writing grand flop track, which is interesting. Patrick Magar there, and yeah, we'll get to touch on any of that kind of stuff, and I hope you are excited about a good discussion on track and field and anything you want to talk about. I'm looking forward to detailing that out on the channel. But I want to start with Gout Gout, as we know, and saw him a few years now, and broke on obviously on the scene properly when he went to the World Championships in Lima, Peru. Didn't quite deliver the way he wanted to. It was a later season for him, considering that he's from Australia. And in addition to that, it was very cold in temperatures there. But he's now moved forward, and the spotlight is being thrust on the kid in some interesting ways. And I always like to think about the perspective here, the comparisons that we ultimately want to draw when it comes to a talent like this. And he's putting himself into the mix, running the 100 meters, which didn't really contest that at the Australian Championships, only at the junior level, but he did run the 200 meters at the senior level. And a fabulous performance, if we're being honest with ourselves, wind-aided. So if we recap it, he had a sub 10 wind-aided performance. When I saw that at first, I started to think there's the kind of buzz. You see the media stuff there, the Aussie media right on top of Gout Gout in ways that I wonder how healthy that might be for him. And then the kid comes back again and he delivers a 19.84. And I look at the race again just to think about my perspective. I watched it a few times. Above the legal limit, their 2.2 win. But even though it was above, it was really a commanding win, and not too far above the maximum legal limit. And what that suggests is it's certainly a sub 20 for sure. We know he's capable of doing that. And the optics of the race also really makes it really good, because no one else in that field is really capable of delivering on a sub 20 shape. And so Gout Gout really destroyed a field like that. And to put this in perspective, what we're talking about here is an athlete that we know has the ability. Will he deliver on it? He's starting to show some of these things. And we have to talk about him. And most importantly, the thing that I've been liking, I don't know how much I like, but the thing that I've been noticing over the last few performances and some of his interviews in the media is he has charisma. Dare I say it, a boat like charisma. I'm not quite sure if it's there yet. I'm not comparing anything, but he's jumping in the crowd. He's ecstatic when he's winning. And this is a superstar in the making. So they're setting him up to be an interesting kid. And for the sport, you need personality, right? You don't only want to be a great performer, but you have to have some personality. In any sport, the athletes that transcend the sport are the ones with the personalities. And I feel like he has it. And that is an interesting thing. He's still developing. He's 17 years of age, a very slender frame. He's going to build up on a lot of strength. Hasn't really raced the top global competition as yet, but we'll get to that. He'll get to that. Uh, he hasn't gone anywhere close to being explosive, and his finishing power isn't where we're gonna see. The race had a couple false starts, so in a way, he sat in the blocks if you want to look at it that way. But his speed endurance is the next big step, I think, for him. Maybe by developing to an adult is probably the next big step before we get to any discussion about what it might mean for him to start running super times. What you don't want him to do is to start running too fast when the body isn't ready. But assuming if he stays healthy and he continues to progress, what we're looking at here is a special athlete, it seems like. There's not much we can say. Just look at the race again. Didn't run the curve as well as you'd want him to he came off of it. He's not fully middling it. He's a little bit out, then he comes back in. But at the end, he's powering away. The arms are not really right, but I don't. You can't really be critical of a 17-year-old doing this type of stuff right now. I'm sure he's just having a lot of fun, enjoying what it means to get the attention on the global stage. And yeah, look at that. I mean, I'm looking at the race once more, and he's just pretty much showcasing that I am the man, right? And that is, some of the things that you need in the sport of track and field. My gosh, he's the kid is good. We knew he was good, and I'm always hesitant to spend time discussing these things, but when you see brilliant performances like this, what can you do, right? He's ready. He's gonna do the right things, I imagine. He should be able to make it into a world championship final. That can be tough, but I wouldn't put it past him. It's gonna be a longer season, as you know, the Australians are up and down with their season in terms of when their summer versus summer for when we'll have the world championship, but southern hemisphere type stuff. But he'll be fine. I think a lot of them will be fine. Question is how much running he'll be doing. I'm sure sponsors want him to do a lot, but they have to monitor him. And I keep going back to the interview that his agent did. I would say maybe at the start of the year or maybe at the end of last year. I'll have to check again. And I remember them saying the development of Gout Gout is strategic, it's purposeful. They aren't rushing anything. A lot of people want to see him in the 100 meters, but they're not forcing that yet. They're waiting on him to develop. And it's clear where he could have run the 100 meters at the Australian thing against the big boys. He didn't. And so you get a sense that they're doing something right. And who knows? And if we trace the history of the sport, we've had a lot of world class talents from time to time. We see them all the time. The question is, can they get to the next level? And getting to that next level and being consistent and developing is often difficult because it comes with a lot of stuff. When you are a big time talent like he is from a country that will give some eyes to track and field, Australia, that is, his story is really good. It's a human interest angle. You think about where he's coming from, his family, the burden, not the burden, but the difficulty in getting to Australia. It's the stuff of dreams if he becomes ultra successful. And I like to think that this resonates with a lot of people. His story will. It's worth interrogating whether or not there's a pressure from the Aussies on him to deliver. They see him right now, and they probably see the next Usain Bolt or you name it, right? The next Letsile Tebogo, Noah Lyles. That's not the way you want to put to do that stuff because there's he's getting a lot of money now. Good contract. He's getting a lot of attention, but he's a lad. He's a schoolboy. He has to learn to develop in those areas before you give him the world. Sure, he deserves it because he's dynamite right now. He's magnet there for them. But we can count to a number of cases that, in a sense, are sobering reminders that if we don't spend time, have the right people around, all of this can blow up. I wish him very well. I think he'll be successful. I don't know what his ceiling is. It's very difficult to say. Sometimes we think about an athlete running super fast times, and then you anticipate that next natural evolution in their development and growth will be all the way down to something super special. So we start to compare the greats and we look at the times Lyles would have run, Usain would have run. Aaron Nathan is obviously the standout there. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get it when you're a senior athlete and get it consistently. We hope he does, and we'll see. Thank you, everybody, for joining me, and don't forget to like and uh, stay in touch. Let me know if you agree with my assessment here and if you have other perspectives on it, because this is we're here to discuss in ways that have fun doing it. Right. I want to go push my attention now to the Oklahoma throw series. You want big throws, you go to Oklahoma, you go to Ramona. We saw it last year. Massive throws. If you got an opportunity, and I hope you did, you can. There's all over the internet the throws from all of these athletes. Noticeable big wins there, and wins everywhere, and those are the places you want to go and make some standout throws, right? Can you go and deliver that when you get to the other stage when you don't have that kind of aided? I don't know. I mean, we've seen 70-meter throws from Mykolas just losing out to the Jamaican in the Olympics last year. So it's not like we don't anticipate him going over 70 meters again, but you're going to get these kind of conditions there. So you maximize it. You try to break a world record or you try to do your very best. There's no wind gauge out there for the discus that says it's an illegal throw or not. So you go where you get the conditions. I'll see. Before I continue, Chris, my man, how you doing? Gout Gout family and team are good for him. Australians have a problem with sport heroes. Where we love them when they win and criticize them when they lose. Point taken. Yeah, I get the sense that he comes from a family that will keep him grounded, and the team seems really good. I don't know the team, but I've listened to the agent. I've seen a few things, and there's no indication that they're not doing their very best to make sure that he's successful. Now, to the Australian crowd, that's a different story. And I think there's a general sentiment of that around the world where when you're top of the world, we all love you. And when you're not, we often are critical. I mean, I think that's part of the story of sport and life. It's increasingly challenging, obviously, when he is this young, if things don't go well, the kind of pressure. And I do hope he doesn't suffer any major setbacks, but the expectation that he's going to just deliver medals at the World Championships this year is not something that I hope you guys are saying in Australia. You can tell me, I hope that's not the case. There should be zero pressure on the lad. In fact, even if he doesn't even go to the World Championships, that would be okay. He has a whole career ahead of him, right? but I suspect he might go. He's good enough. And we'll see what happens over this summer. I hope they run him sparingly. But Australia's a tough crowd, right? You guys have major sporting heroes across the board, right? Eh, It's not an easy place to walk through, and you have great track and field people for years, right? I mean, even think about Kathy and how long it took for her to finally win that gold medal on soil, home soil. Uh, the good thing about, I would say, to the Australian track and field team is that there are a bunch of high class athletes around, right? Especially in the jumps. You know, on the women's side, a couple, the pole vaulter there as well. On the men's side, Peter Boyle. There's a bunch of athletes that he's not going to go to a world championships or a major games and just feels outside of it, right? So I hope he'll be fine, and I hope that the nation doesn't put particularly big pressure or expectation on him. There should be expectation that he will be great because there's indications for that. But the demands for it to happen right away, I would caution against that, and I would like to think, even though we can't legislate for human behavior, that there would be a level of patience exercised by a crowd that rightly so wants champions, but you have to wait for these things. Clip, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Big up to you as well. Thanks for being on the channel as usual. Chris again is saying it would be wise advice to keep gout away from big events too soon. I think I can agree with that kind of sentiment. When you look at him, he doesn't look like his body is ready yet. And my big fear is that he's pushed too early, and then you get into a space where the body can't manage the kind of rounds, because the rounds that you'll have to do at a world championship is certainly different, much different from the rounds. But it's not like it can't be done, right? Like we've seen Knighton do it, we've seen even Houston and others. So, I don't wanna go down all the names. We've seen it with on the women's side as well. So, I think he'll be fine. I mean, as long as he's listening to the instructions and they have everything at his best heart, we'll see. Cliff is saying, "I think Gout Gout can definitely make it to the semifinal I at Tokyo." I agree with that as well. To be honest, he could even make the final. It's not gonna be easy, but he can. He'd have to show up and get into that final, and we'll have to see, right? We have to wait till see the season unfold and what kind of shape athletes are in, and but I suspect he could get into that. The 200 meters get a little bit competitive space, but got your Kung Fu Kenny, Letsile Tebogo, Lyles, Aaron if he's back. There's a bunch of guys, uh, and there's some people coming back too. So we'll see. I think he should be in the mix. Chris is saying we value Olympic gold and any other glory. That's true. I think that's the biggest prize in all of sport. Were you to rank what you would want to have around your neck, the Olympic champion is just the greatest thing in you can get, especially when you think about sport of track and field, right? It doesn't only define you, but it it puts you on a pedestal that like no other, right? A lot of people would give up their multiple world championship gold medals to walk away with the title as the Olympic champion. So it's not shouldn't be lost on us. We can't underscore how important that medal is. But the world championship to build a career, I think when an athlete comes out of the gate, they often think to the top. The mountaintop is the Olympics, and rightly so. They want to get there and they want to deliver. It's also a very cruel place because, especially in the sport of track and field, an individual sport of this nature, you get injured, you make a misstep, and you don't have another year or 2 years to come back, you have to wait 4 years, and a cycle starts all over again. And so we tend to honor those athletes and revere them, venerate them when we think about their ability to come to Olympic Games and go back to back and multiple medals, or it's a special or sacred ground. I say build a career, you have to build it around getting those world championship medals. It's also the top of the sport as well. Doesn't get the same kind of eyes as the Olympics, but it's a good payout if you compare it to the Olympics, where there's no pay until last year, where World Athletics through SEPCO was giving away cash prizes to the winner. I suspect that might change in future years to come, but build a career. So if he can get to the World Championships this year, is fine. But I suspect that Gout Gout's trajectory would be the LA Olympics. Sights on that. That's coming up in a few years' time. We'll see. Get on this thing. Uh, do you know if he's got is Australia sending a team to the World Relays? I haven't looked at all of the announcements. I didn't see if Australia named their team yet. Will he go to the World Relays? Maybe you can give us some insight if he's still around, Chris. Yeah. All right. So in the meantime, we can continue some of these conversations around what happened last week, and I want to, again acknowledge before I get into the world record from Alekna, who comes from a great sporting tradition in the discus. Shout out to Valarie Allman. I mean, it's a spectacular. She's a beautiful thrower to watch. When you think about other sports, the grace of a discus thrower in some ways is akin to the grace and beauty of a gymnast. My take. And for her, a fantastic 73.52, a North American record, world leading. It's the farthest distance we've seen in the sport since 1989. So that you should always take note of what that means. And that moves her up to 6 all-time on the world list. Really, really good throws from her. Fantastic series too. 69, 65, 73, 66, 69 again, 70 meters. Great, great stuff. Also, uh, La Luga there too with a 70 meters and change, 70, 72 PB. First time for her going over there. A bunch of women, even Perez, who had that massive lead last year, finishing in fourth with a 66.96, and Farley from the United States, 68.72. So great throws there. Excellent stuff. No complaints from me. We all know where those events are. It's in Oklahoma. You get big throws in Oklahoma. Chris is saying next year, Commonwealth Games, next year, 2028 Olympics team, good goals while finishing school, maybe university, but resists U.S. college offers. Oh, yeah. I don't think an athlete like Gout Gout should even think about going to university in the United States. He could come to the United States if it aligns with, say, his training, but the kind of money that he's picking up right now, the sponsorship, I don't. I'm not sure. Maybe you can tell me, but what kind of support structure Australia has for elite athletes? If there's that kind of special retainer contract there, uh, you he should be fine, right? So, and then of course, he doesn't have to come or leave Australia if he doesn't want. You guys have that wonderful sports science facility there. So there's quality that can be done there. But if he wants to be in a group or a mix of other athletes, there's a bunch of Adidas groups that he can fall into. But I would say for the college, there wouldn't be a need for that. He can always get an education whenever, especially if the trajectory continues in this way, because you don't want to be running some odd races here and there if you can't help it. But I'm a firm believer, obviously, that you should always think about your education, because the sport is cruel, and also the sport isn't the most lucrative when you compare it to other sports. But this is something that I'm sure they could have arranged or will arrange in this contract that at some point, regardless, they can pay for an education. All right, let me get back to what Clip is saying here before I touch on the Alekna's performance. So he's saying when you look at Gout's races, you notice that he's already has this step count perfect. Yeah, his second half of the 200 is on par with the best. It looks that way. Probably in reality, all the kid needs is the power. Yeah, I think you have to generate that power, that kind of stride. When you look at that velocity curve or whatever they say in the coaching manuals, it's there's some work to be done there. But I look at God, I don't know, right? It's hard to know. Sometimes it's hard to judge. I suspect he's not even at his strongest yet, right? So the first thing, maybe he is, maybe he's not. You have to get him to his maximum strength. Then after that, it's all of that work to get more power, right? All the Olympic lifts, the plyometric stuff, the explosive work, and then a lot of maintenance work too. Because if he's gonna really run these big time uh, 200 meters, he's gonna have to have a level of endurance that to maintain that. How quick can he get? I don't know. We'll have to see. When I looked at him some months ago, I was like, yeah, he could be a great 2-4 guy, but I doubt that's what we'll see. Everybody gravitates to the 100 meters. It's the pinnacle of the sport, and I suspect that's where he'll be heading as well. But yeah, the kid is a special talent, and he looks generational. Let's hope he ends up with a career that is generational. Yeah, not putting any records or anything in the books. I think those are aspirational, but he needs a career, and I think he can get it. All right, back to the meet there in Ramona, Oklahoma. Mykolas Alekna. Last year, he broke the world record there. Then he comes and he does it what twice? 75.56, outrageous. And it's like a meet 1 meter 21, almost exactly a year to the date. Very, very special stuff there. What can we say? We've been seeing some big throws of at least 5 men in the 70-meter throws most recently. We're looking at, Matthew Denny also doing a 74, 78. Big oceanic record there. Uh, yeah, there's that kid from the British kid that was he was what, an NFL guy some years ago. He also going really far in some of these distances. I was looking at some of them again recently, just looking at the throws. It's amazing kind of stuff that we've been seeing. And oh yeah, and I even forgot about even thinking about it. Uh the athlete there, the French athlete, I think from Louisville, was also really far out in the throws as well. So a number of great stuff happening in Oklahoma for sure. Uh, I see what you're saying. His second half's 200-meter splits are actually on par with the best. Yeah. No, I mean, and when you look at the legs he was kicking, I mean, it was like the form wasn't the best, but you can't like I feel like critiquing or looking at it too deeply is a bit harsh, right? He's a kid, but yeah, he's up there. I mean, if he gets the first part right, runs a good curve, he's probably gonna be. I don't know where we'll get. We'll see. We'll see what we get from him, but he's gonna be good. Yeah. So yeah, some good stuff there in the distances. Can't complain. Can't You really, really can't complain. I mean, to go back to the Australian Championships too, really good stuff too. I like Alice Legas in her cleared what 201, looking good there. I mean, Eleanor Patterson's always in the mix. She attempted 205, didn't really get that. I think there was a PB for Bol, I think, in what 143.79. Not quite sure if that's going to get him into the mix right now. The 800 meters is a special time in world athletics. So if he can improve upon that, you can run 141 and not medal. This is how dangerous things are, and the bar has gone up in some interesting ways. Yeah, so a number of different performances there. I don't necessarily want to go through all of that. I was just kind of picking a few performances there from Australia. Yeah. Before I get to a couple more performances at the Botswana Grand Prix, I want to take a moment to talk about Bryce Deadmon. So Bryce Deadmon over the weekend also had a really good performance, 44:30. He opens this season, which is really, really quick. And when you consider that his PB is 44:22 from a couple of years ago, opening up with 44:3 suggests to me that he will very likely break the sub 44 barrier this year. In a way, you have to. It's also a tough team to make. He's clearly has ambitions of getting an individual spot on the US national team for Tokyo. So I like what I saw there. I mean, there's a couple of guys over 400 meters so far, giving us some good looks in Botswana, obviously. And Ndori gave us the 44:35 as well. He had a good run a few weeks ago when he beat Letsile Tebogo as well. And we saw Chris Bailey at the Grand Slam Championships in Jamaica with a 44:34. So early season, very, very early season. World Championships in September, a long schedule ahead of us, bunch of diamond leagues, continental tours, some more Grand Slam tracks. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to see athletes, and it's a matter of how you really work the season. And for some, they'll try to time it for late. For others, they'll work hard, come off that peak, and try to get back on that peak. Interesting times ahead. But shout out to Bryce, because I thought that if you can open up at a 44:3 and your PB is 44:2 or 44:22, then we're looking at an athlete that is serious about where he wants to be this year. And I think that's something that we should take. I think it's a pivotal moment for him in the sport. He's growing into it, and what's at stake for him is his future, and if he can get onto an individual spot, that might change his life in some interesting ways. All right, not a couple of some good performances over the weekend. Letsile Tebogo headline at the Continental Tour meeting in Botswana, winning his race into a headwind of a 1.6 headwind, and running a 20.23 over the 200 meters. Really, really easy win for Letsile Tebogo. Absolutely cruising at the end, shutting it down. Increasingly, Letsile has this tendency to stop running by the time you get to 170, 75 meters, somewhere about there. And a very, very interesting take on that. We know how good he is. Olympic champion. You expect him to go much further. And yeah, what can we say? It's Tebogo. Importantly as well, we saw fabulous performance from Akini Sambini there as well. He too, I believe, probably is thinking about what can happen. Had a really good World Indoor Championships, that Sambini, that is. He got the opportunity to get on a podium, which is a big time for him. Not an athlete that would have competed frequently over the indoors as well, but to get a major medal is important for him. And he also looked good running which I still think might be the fastest time in the world, but these things can change, into a serious headwind as well, into a 1.4 headwind, running 990. So really good. It was a decent race. You also had Ferdinand Omaniala in it, so it's not like he was running by himself. So that's good, and also in Ndori as well, running that 44:35 that we mentioned earlier. And it was also good to see uh Dalilah Muhammad, which is in a way our farewell tour. We found out about that when she announced that during the Grand Slam in Jamaica, and I think she's really, former world record holder, pushed the sport in an interesting way before Sydney again took it to a next level. But for many of those athletes, Anna Cockrell, even a Sydney McLaughlin, all of those American athletes, they looked up to her. And so she's on a farewell tour. And I like what I'm seeing from her in running, fairly good running as well. And it's important that she runs as often as she can. It would be great if she could make the US national team come for Tokyo, but that's not going to happen. I should take that back. That's very unlikely. So you run as often as you can, but a 53.81, she hasn't touched that for a little bit of a while. So I'm not quite sure how much more is in those legs, but we get to see a farewell tour of her, which likely we'll hopefully see a farewell tour of the greatest 100-meter athlete ever, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce, which this year is her last season as well. Hopefully we get to see her and compete really well as well. We'll have to wait and see there. But yeah, that's those are some of the performances that stood out for me last week. If you agree, let me know. If you're joining on the rebroadcast, obviously put that in the comment section. We'll talk about it. All right. I'm gonna go back to something that I spent a whole live on recently. And I got a lot of comments about it. Well, maybe not a lot, but a few. Some people thought I was critical of the Grand Slam track. And I was. I do think my assessment is still correct. And I also think it's okay to be critical while still wanting it to be successful. So I'd love for it to be successful. I want to say that. I want any kind of track and field meet event league to be successful because it gives opportunity to athletes and it gives opportunity to hopefully get to the eyes of the people who don't necessarily are stalwart of the sport. If you aren't veterans of the sport from a watching side, you also want others to be in the mix. Now, I bring it back up because, when I did my piece, it was shortly after the final day of the Grand Slam, which was underwhelming in terms of the crowd. Because it's a big stadium for track and field, it's a 35,000 seater. I'm not blaming anybody not going because an event has to appeal to you. The organizers have to understand the markets, and there must be a reason why you chose Jamaica. As I said before, they probably chose it because they thought that it's a track-loving country. It's a sprint capital. They anticipated crowds, possibly what's always broadcasted around the world of the Boys and Girls Championships. And they got nothing close to that. So that's disappointing on their part. It's not a disappointment. I'm not disappointed with patrons or anything like that. How you want to spend your money or how you choose to entertain yourself is up to you. In many ways, a lot of convincing has to happen from the people selling the product. So I'm going to go through some other things, and I'm going to rant again. But I want to start off with Patrick Margar and his piece on From Grand Slam to Grand Flop, a lesson in what not to do with athletics. That is his article. You can read it. It's all over the internet. He posted it on his LinkedIn account. He's also the former meet director there for, what is it, Zurich. He did that for many years. He hasn't been in the sport for a while, at least from a administrative standpoint or running meets, a meet director. It's also clear that he's not necessarily on great terms with Michael Johnson, which is also fine. But that doesn't mean he can't be critical and put on a show and put on his opinion. He's a successful meet director in the past. I think. I mean, I wouldn't have gone as far as to write the grand flop thing, but it's something that my producer told me that name before we were watching it last week. He was saying it's a grand flop, and so I wasn't necessarily surprised when I start to see other people coining that term. There's a lot of critiques for how the meet was handled. So before we even get to the crowds or any of that stuff, the crowds weren't there. But I want to go back to the organization of the sport. And I want to go back to last year and earlier this year when people on the channel asked me my thoughts on it. I'm very skeptical that you can actually run a track and field meet or a track meet without field events because it's a spectacle. It has to have something going on in the stadium. If you package the entire Grand Slam track over those 3 days, it's like 30 minutes of coverage. But yet the entire day is giving, each session is a 3-hour session. It's a bag of talking. They start the broadcast and 42 minutes into it before you get something on the track. And I'm being kind right now, right? So I think that has to be rethought. I know if you're only interested in track and not the field part, product is not ready. And for this to be good too, and maybe they don't have the money the same way. I mean, they had a $30 million upstart. We talked about it before. But, it takes $30 million is not a lot of money. When you're considering the operation, the big scale of the team, when we don't necessarily know the partnership deals in terms of the money and the TV contract, which I know is not a lot of money. So it could be in the eyes of a lot of places. It's on TV everywhere or streaming platforms, but it's not a massive deal. It's no multi-billion dollar deal. We would have known about it. Sports business would be on top of it. They would have had it in the journal already. So it's not that kind of level. It has to build. It's a brand new thing. Now, what am I underscoring here? One, I think from a meet director perspective, they felt down tremendously. You can't have so much dead space. I mean, even if you had a carnival inside of the place and people floating around and dancing, from a television standpoint, is a problem. Most successful track and field meets are packaged really well. The Diamond League tries to do this, even the Continental Tour, you name it. It's like action after action in between your ads going. And there is nothing else to help it. So that doesn't look good. And a lot of people are critical of this. A lot of people in the know in the sport around the world, they are there. Clip is saying they remove field events just to have a bunch of downtime with the camera panning to the sky. That is exactly what's happening. You cannot have a track and field meet like that. You got to have more activity, more races or more field events or something like that. For the life of me, I don't know. I would be worried about this because the money is big. And I don't know if it's sustainable. $100,000, we don't know necessarily how much money the race is signed for, but I'm sure they're they had to do their best to get certain athletes. And then they didn't have some of the stars in the sport, right? You can have the fastest, you can have really high quality, but you need stars. You need people who can transcend in different marketplaces too. So you don't have a Noah, you don't have Shakiri, you don't have Grant, you don't have Fraser Price, you don't have Jackson, you don't have Mondo because there's no track events for him. You don't have Ingebrigtsen. So I give it to you. The lineup was great. I mean, you had really good Olympic champions and medalists, and the lineup for the 800 meters or the 1500 meters. Fantastic stuff. But the sport needs stars. And when you're trying something new, you need stars. And the star power is limited. And there's reasons why some people didn't sign on, I imagine. Can get into those, but I'm not I'm sure it's not for lack of trying. And so I really wanted to do well, and I want to see what they do in the Myanmar event. Last time I checked, there were tickets available still. I mean, there's still time to sell them out. It's a smaller stadium by far. So if you can't pull that out, we're looking at some problems. Yeah. Clifford said the person that MJ tried to make the face of the league didn't even promote the league in any way. So you're talking about Sydney? uh, Sydney is somewhat of is an interesting athlete, right? She makes the rounds as she gets on US TV, she gets into magazines. I don't know about the driving power. It's interesting. Now, to pay out this kind of cash, you have to be successful. So you have to have crowds that come to the meet. Those people make others want to come. The reason why you need packed stadiums, even if you had to buy or and put them inside, is because it gives people watching the sense that the next time I need to be in the stadium because this is good. So empty stands, not helpful. To start, maybe you needed to start with a 50K or something less than that, right? And maybe spread around some more athletes. But as one person who I really value their opinion a lot, they were mentioning that when you look at some of the lineup, it's the thing looked like a continental tour. Yeah, you had some stars, but then when you look all the way down, not everyone in every event was delivering something that would be extremely world class. That can hamper any kind of meet, and especially a meet that's just starting up. Now, again, I have to emphasize this because I've done it, but I want to underscore this point. Grand Slam track cannot be successful if it's relying on people who are already track and field fans. The model cannot work if that's what they're doing, because they will not be able to make a profit. They will not be able to sell the TV rights at a higher level. So you have to get people who aren't track and field fans. I said it the last time, I paid nothing to watch this because I had Peacock subscription before. If you are the person who will dig to the very end of the earth to find a track and field meet, you aren't the fan they should be appealing to. Yeah, they want you to watch it and comment and probably show up, but you're already someone who has the sport's best interest at heart. I appreciate your green clip. It's not a sport. You have to get people who, when the Olympics comes around, feel as if they know everything about track and field. You got to get people like, I'm sorry. A couple times I have people in my house come over and they're watching track and field and they're getting annoyed. I'm getting annoyed because I don't know what they're saying. They have no context. They don't know anything, but they're into it. You have to you have to get those people. The people who show up and put eyes because this thing called the Olympic rings are around and the fancy music and the greatest spectacle on earth is happening and the track and field portion of it gets undivided attention from billions of people around the world. Those are the fans Grand Slam track need to find. Because if you don't find them, this is going bust in a few years. And all these people who are talking about it's revolutionary and what Michael Johnson doing is great. Yeah, that's on one side. He's trying to pay the athletes. But he's a marketing guy right now. And they will put on a brave face and tell you how successful things look because they have to. They can't say they were very, very disappointed by the lack of fans inside of the stadium. They can never say that. They can maybe hint at it, but they can't. It's a pivotal moment for them. Yeah, they brought in all of the fancy equipment. The equipment they had, the setup. I've said it before. I said it the last time. It's the same guys. What's it? Primetime timing. Those are hardcore people. They know what they're doing. They run U.S. nationals. They do all the good stuff. They got it. They got the cameras. They got everything. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you need the eyes on it and you need to transcend. So I'm going to be critical again because I was talking to some people and I was trying to make this point because I don't think a lot of people are seeing this. So you watch the sport and you saw that they tried to appeal to some level of celebrity. So you see Justin Gatlin there, you see Asafa Powell, you see Veronica Campbell-Brown, other athletes from the past, the 90s. MJ is there, obviously. And they keep panning to these people. What are those people supposed to do to bring crowds or to bring awareness to the sport? That's the question I have. Yeah, they can probably bring awareness to people who might be inclined to watch track and field or know them. The kind of stars that you really want to partner with are people who can bring other people into the sport. Your Ice Speeds, your Kaisenats, whatever those guys are, Mr. Beast, whoever. Flipping Katy Perry. You want partnerships with those type of people who can line up a thing that's coordinated. Like, hey, I'm flying out to Jamaica to go check out track and field. You should come. Let's get into some kind of partnership with a tourist board for free things, giveaways to all inclusive trips, and they're on their live stream watching the event or showcasing how good this is and pointing people. That's the star power you need. You don't have those people, then I don't know what you're doing. So there's a lot of work they need to do. Because if they're going to make money, it cannot be on the backs of people who already watch the Diamond League or the World Championships coming up at the end of this year. Well, in September. We aren't the fans you need to target. We are part of it, but you need to go beyond that. And I think the effort to go beyond that was lacking. Gotta do something about the competition. This thing is boring. I can't sit through 3 hours. It does even make good for a good watch along. So I need to even do. I was traveling part of it, but even I could have done the watch along on the last day. It's not good. It's not constant action. We can't talk about the stuff and watch it. It's not. We're just watching space, dead air. So there's work to be done. Again, I hope they're successful, and I'm not hating. I'm just pointing out the reality here. Because if it continues like this won't last long, and people won't continue to put money in. And how much money they're going? I mean, it's a startup, so I suspect. I think All in the Game the last time was on the channel was saying they're anticipating operating off a profit for not making a profit for some period of time, but you have to have progress. I tried to look at the Nielsen ratings last week. It didn't even show up. It's nowhere there. No one watched it in the United States. Absolutely no one. That's not good. So they got to do some work there. Anyway, I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. I hope you have a good rest of your evening wherever you are. If you're watching on a rebroadcast, do me a favor, put some comments in the chat in there. I'll respond to them. We got a few shorts out on the channel right now and some videos to come, and I'll be back again hopefully over the weekend. Before I go, I said clip got another one, so let's see. He says they already messed up big time by not inviting the top champ schools for free. They should have given away 1,000 tickets to every top high school. Yeah, they should have done that. They should have packed that thing. They would have known. They're controlling the ticket sales too. You buy them on their website. They know. They could have known how many sales and the projected sales, and whoever local people would have helped them to understand markets there, because you need some local understanding, I suspect, about behavior. I don't know. You have to have the market data. They should have done this some long time ago. The biggest fail is that they never found a way to bus people into that place. I said it the last time, they should have paid people to go inside of the stadium. Because you want people to know what's going on. Yeah. Yeah, they have all of that. They knew that ticket sales weren't good. And I tell you, they gave away a lot of tickets too. So don't get us started on that. So ideally, they knew this was going to be a flop. So by the time they start saying, oh, people can come in, no one even really took that up by any great numbers, right? And you needed at least 20,000 people in that place for it to look half decent, maybe 15, 16. Somewhere, if you had to get all the way around, you could pan the camera, not necessarily go as high, and do something nice, and you would have dead air. And they set it up. I'm telling you, look where they pitched even the Sonia Richards and Matthew, the guy from Rio who won 1500. They all did it because when it hit the camera angle right there, the expectation is that tons of people would be behind. And it was like, it was nothing. Absolutely nothing. You would think it was the COVID Olympics in certain sections. So they have to do much better. They need to improve upon that. Otherwise, it's a problem. But as I said, the key thing for them to be successful is that they need to bring new people into the sport. People who might like to enjoy track and field, they might watch the Olympics, but they don't do anything substantial with it afterwards. The Olympics is over and then you have some Diamond League, and none of these people are watching that stuff. You need to get those people. You need to get the stars that have nothing to do with track and field, but with large audiences that can then maybe bring a few people over. You don't do this, it's a problem. And this is a sobering reminder that's going to be a problem. Akram, how are you doing? Thank you for joining. I hope if it's your first time, appreciate it. I can't recall seeing your name before. Maybe I did and just forget. Yeah. If you don't get these people, then it's for nothing. Otherwise, you're making nothing. And then you cannot continue to sell those numbers. Clip is saying track is just not promoted enough. I've never seen a track promo against my will, but I have in plenty. Of course, I mean, I saw a few things on Instagram for the Grand Slam, but it was all to me. And I talked to people who don't really follow and they weren't getting the same thing. So whatever market research firms that they're working with failed miserably. And I can't speak for what happened in the European market, but a lot of people in Europe, they're not starved for quality track and field either. We must remember this. The Europeans have a bunch of meats that's always filled. Hard to get. Established meats for years. Fabulous stuff. You'll get to that London Diamond League and that will fill the stadium. Some of the stadiums are smaller, big, but they know what they're doing. And there's an appetite for it. I bet you when they watch that, they're like, what the hell is this? And a number of the journalists from the European continent, they weren't impressed. I mean, I'm not saying they were in some stellar performances. And I want to make that clear. I think you guys understand this. But if someone comes on, they think I'm hating. I mean, Sydney was great. You know, Wanyoni, like how he managed to pull that off was really interesting. And the hurdles were good, and it was good stories for the sprint hurdler who just got up and ran, or even Jenna Prandini making a quick 50 grand from flying in to replace somebody, and Kung Fu Kenny and looking good, and real decent running too from the Santos, and you name it. I'm not saying the talent wasn't there, and there was some star power. That's not the problem. The problem is that we didn't have the eyes on it. Not in the stadium and not outside. I haven't seen the data from Europe or any of these places, but there's no Nielsen data to back it up in the United States. It's like nothing. It's a blip. Never happened. They need some work there. It's not easy to sell sport because people aren't short for sport, especially in the big market. And you got to crack the US market for this. This is a big sport market. It's hard to work in, but need something. I wish them the very best. I hope they're successful, because if they can be successful, that means athletes have an opportunity to make a lot of money, right? And all of the people were on the other side is like, it's good for the athletes, it's good for the athletes, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's good for the athletes. You made a good check. But is that check coming every year? Is it sustainable? And we're talking about tough times might be happening in the global economy, certainly in the US economy, if they continue to mess around with tariffs and all this stuff. You know, the markets are down, and the bond market is the biggest one of all, messing around with that stuff. You just never know, right? So to launch a new initiative is can be dicey if you end up in an economic climate where people feel like they don't want to spend extra money. So let's see if it works. But they have to do something better. We'll see what happens in Mirror. I'll watch. I mean, I tell you, I'll watch anything. I'll find. This is how I am. I'll, you know, I'll watch masters events in track and field. But I'm not the guy that you should be appealing to, right? And if we trace the history of this sport called track and field, there's been a number of meets that tried to come and say they're revolutionizing the sport. We can go back to the 1960s and 70s, even the 1990s, even recently. The Nitro meet in Australia when Bolt was there never happened. Didn't sustain funding, all that stuff. We're at a crucial moment in the sport, and we'll give it some time, but we'll see. Akram is saying, do you think with the right promotion that track and field can eventually compete with the dominant sports in the world? I don't know. I think that's probably hard to do. Very, very hard to do. Otherwise, it would have been done already. You know what I'm saying? Like in some cases, you have to be a hegemonic sport, right? You have to crack the United States. It's a tough market to crack. The big sports here, NFL by far, got baseball, NBA, college sports are massive here. This is probably college sports, probably second biggest sports in the United States after NFL when you combine it. And but there's some new stuff. I mean, MLS has grown tremendously. The WNBA, you know, volleyball leagues are popping up in different parts of the country, in Wisconsin and in Minnesota and other places, and different kind of minor league stuff. So you can do things to elevate it, right? And there are big track meets that happen all the time, usually associated with college and so on. You know, but you get a couple good events here, Prefontaine, Massive Diamond League, you get the New York Grand Prix, you'll get a few other things. You know, you got your pen relays, which has shifted in the way in which they've done it now. They had gone to a lot of internationals, then it moved back away. And you know, there's Drake, there's a bunch of stuff, Mount Sac relays, but I don't really know how you get it on TV and what right promotion looks like, right? Ultimately, you need to have fans that are going to watch it. And if you can do that, then it will go. I think for it to be successful, our track and field to kind of break away in some interesting ways, it has to be marketed or packaged in a way that we don't like as hardcore fans. If you're a veteran of the sport, you will hate it. But that's probably what you need to kind of shift the bar. All right, I'll try to use an example like in cricket. I mean, even to this day, I'm not sure I'm a great fan of T20, but people get excited about that stuff, right? You know, I still, you know, Test cricket is the greatest cricket ever. But I look in the stands, unless it's Australia, England playing in the Ashes, or India and Australia, Border Gavaskar, you might struggle. You know, it's empty stands. It's not easy. So people have to watch a sport and want to watch a sport. I don't know what the right marketing. The promotion has to be. I would have done some of these promotions. I mean, look, I'm also talking from a space where I don't know the inner workings of what's going on. We don't know all of the financial stuff. We know what money they have or the startup money that they got. The board looks decent. It looks like serious people, but they made some missteps, right? And I would start by, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if some people get fired. Like, you know, who really was monitoring the ticket sales? Who understood the marketplace? And yeah, I'm not calling for heads or anything like that, but you know, that's not my business. But partially, I think you need partners that are outside of the sport of track and field, that have huge audiences that like sports. You need ambassadors from other sports. I'm sorry, but that's what we need. Then maybe those eyes can help to bring a few more people. We'll see what happens when it kicks off here in the United States, but it's tough. Cliff is saying it's not easy make people care about something they don't care about. So I understand that factor. That's true. It takes a special type of path dependency to be a hardcore fan. I'm telling you, if you survey the average athlete, not athlete, fan, they don't know that track and field occurs outside of the Olympics. They don't even know like the same with gymnastics. Like a lot of people think gymnastics is only in the Olympics and it has its own world championships as well. Like you have to connect with the sport in a way. It has to mean something to you. And I know a lot of athletes are complaining and they're going around. No, Eliza saw him on tour talking. And I don't know if those are the options, man. I don't really know. I feel it for the athletes. I feel it for people who probably want to watch a good sport and they're bereft of great performances, because track and field has it. And I always say it's one of the greatest spectacles you can ever go and witness, because you'll get everything: speed, power, the ingredients that makes every sport successful. You'll find all of that in a track and field meet in different shapes, sizes, in one day. People jumping over stuff, vertical and horizontal, and running over barriers, jumping over water, running for long, running for short, handing a baton over. It's a skill set like you'll never see, throwing stuff that will kill you. If you ever bring people in to that type of space and they can breathe and understand how great those things are, I think you can get winners there. You can turn some people onto the sport. But it's to get them to like that stuff. And it's to get them to think that it's a real sport too. Because a lot of people look at speed, oh, you should be a wide receiver then, or running back, or whatever, or I can get you to, you're strong, I could get you on a court, to be part of the offensive line or something like that, right? Until you can move those barriers, it's going to be a difficult thing. I'm not quite sure how some of that works. We'll give it time, Grace. I hope it doesn't go out of business relatively quickly. I hope that a lot of people show up in Miramar. I'm not going, but I don't have time. But I'll watch. And we'll see. Lots of track and field and lots of other sports happening this week. I am going to sign off for tonight. I really appreciate everybody coming on, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget to like the video on your way out, and thanks for joining me. You take care.